You're listening to Confessions of a Counselor podcast. Here we will talk all things mental wellness.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Confessions of a Counselor. It's Janice here. Today I thought we would talk about postpartum, a really important time that often comes with a lot of struggles that aren't talked about or aren't discussed. So I thought today we would talk about postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety and how to tell the difference, to talk about postpartum anxiety, which a lot of people don't know about or haven't heard about, and also how to know if you're just kind of experiencing I don't want to say normal, but the kind of more seen or understood fluctuations in hormones and mood that happen after postpartum. So postpartum depression is probably the most common thing that you hear about. So this is depression. It is a low mood, sometimes coming with apathy, agitation, upsetness. It can come with thoughts of harm to self or others, including the baby, and is chronic and persistent. And again, kind of what we were talking about in the depression episode, where it is dampening everything, right? So even a good moment with the baby or a good moment with your partner doesn't feel good, right? It's saturated with this sadness and apathy. So that's kind of the most common thing that you hear. In the postpartum period, there's so many hormone fluctuations, there's so much change and transition, whether you're going from no babies to one baby or 5 babies to 6 babies, there's transition, there's change. Every pregnancy is different, every birth story is different, and so there's going to be things that can be difficult about this transition. And it's going to be a hard period for most people. So giving ourselves that grace for it to be hard and to have that understanding. And then also noticing these red flags, right? So can I experience connection with my child? Can I experience joyful moments with this child? Do I feel sad all of the time, or do I feel sad some of the time, right? So these are the questions we want to ask ourselves. In terms of postpartum anxiety, this can look so many different ways. And as I said in my intro, I experienced postpartum anxiety after the birth of my first child. I didn't know what postpartum anxiety was until I experienced it myself. And so now I feel very strongly about advocating and educating whoever will listen, hence this podcast, to learn about how postpartum anxiety can affect us, right? Because sometimes it's not just a sad mood or everything feels dampened. Sometimes postpartum anxiety can come into play and we feel angry or agitated or scared and fearful all the time, or that negative self-talk is there, or we feel so touched out that we just feel like we want to run away. And all of this, again, when it is happening all the time, or there is very little moments where you can experience joy or connection in this new time, this is where we want to be aware that perhaps there's something more than just hormonal fluctuations or this season being hard. So being aware of the fact that anxiety can look like anger. Anxiety can look like withdrawing, and being aware that postpartum anxiety is a thing. So those very, very fearful thoughts that are intrusive and perhaps violent in nature don't have to be the norm. That doesn't have to be your experience of postpartum. And so to recognize that with all of these things, talking about what your experience is, asking for help, whether it's postpartum blues or it's postpartum anxiety, no matter what it is, reaching out for help and talking about our experience, talking about it with other women, or people who are giving birth, talking about it with our friends and our family is so important to ensuring that this time period doesn't become one where we feel alone and isolated and like there's no support. So with all of this, I just want to say that you are not alone in this. And if this is something that you're experiencing, please, please, please reach out to someone. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Confessions of a Counselor podcast is available anywhere you like to listen to your podcast, both on Apple and Android. New episodes will be released every Friday. If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to join the conversation. Leave a review or subscribe to the podcast hosted on the Anchor app. All these details can be found at janicelyons.com. Until next time, take care.